my name is Elisabeth Thaller. I have worked as an auditor for over 20 years, and it really has become my passion. I have also participated in several ISO committees where I've been exposed to working with the brightest minds in our business, and it's really a wonderful work, and I'm very happy to share my knowledge with all of you. No matter how many audits I do, and I have done very many over the past 2 decades, there's always something new to learn. In particular, this quickly changing global environment poses constant challenges on the business community and all that participate in it. Today, we will talk about auditing combined or integrated management systems. Most ISO management system standards are based on the ISO directives high-level structure, which facilitates the integration and allows a more efficient use of resources. During this presentation, we will take a quick look at the history and background of the high-level structure for ISO management system standards. Then, after checking the definition of combined versus integrated management systems, we'll look at the common elements in an integrated management system and how to make efficient use of audit resources. We'll also talk about specifically auditing combined or integrated management systems and the guidance, or rather the requirements that are provided by the International Accreditation Forum, IAF, regarding those audits and how to calculate the time for those audits. Let's start with the history of the high-level structure for ISO management system standards. When you see a MSS, that stands for Management System Standards. When you see HLS, that stands for High-Level Structure. ISO's Joint Technical Coordination Group, the JTCG, was established in 2007. And it comprises representatives from all of ISO's management system standards committees. The JTCG is responsible for what until now has been known as the Annex SL of the ISO IEC Directives Part 1. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard that term. This annex defines the high-level structure with identical core text, common terms and core definitions for any new management system standard and for any revisions to existing management system standards to enhance the consistency of ISO management system standards, hence to make it easier to combine different management system disciplines into one management system within an organization. In 2012, ISO adopted the concept of the high-level structure for developing management system standards. As of then, all standards have to follow the high-level structure, and all existing management system standards have to be adapted to the high-level structure during subsequent revisions. Currently, there are about 40 management system standards from ISO that follow the high-level structure. Some of the most known and applied are, for example, ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, 27001, 37001, and others. Some sector-specific non-ISO standards, for example, the automotive quality management system standard IATF 16949, all follows the high-level structure. In 2019, the ISO directives were revised, and in its 2019 version, so quite recently, Annex SL has become Annex L of the ISO supplement to the ISO IEC Directives Part 1, edition 2019. However, at this point, the core text of the high-level structure has not changed. It's still the same from the previous version of the ISO directives. Now, when you see Annex SL, SL does not stand for anything. It is just a consecutive numbering of the annexes within the ISO directives. The same for Annex L. It's just an L, doesn't stand for anything, for language or any other word. This is oftentimes being confused. Now, in 2018, a task force, TF14, was established to conduct a limited revision of Annex SL, now Annex L, based on the feedback from ISO standard developers and users via their national member bodies and a meta-analysis of the different management system standards. Task Force 14 is responsible for revising the content of Appendix 2, which includes the high-level structured text for management system standards, among other tasks. Also, Annex L, previously Annex SL, is not a standard in its own right. It does form the basis for harmonization of now over 40 individual management system standards published by ISO. The revised version of the HLS, the high-level structure, is expected to be published in the ISO directives as of May 2022. Also, it will be available for use by the ISO technical committees, the ones who make those standards, as of the second half of 2021 for use for the revision of existing ISO management system standards and establishment of new management system standards. Topics for discussion for change include a review of the concept of risk, documented information, and other topics including management of change, emergency preparedness, leadership, governance, and culture, among others. This is an early stage of the revision, so no, we cannot really tell you what the changes will be, how they will affect all future standards. So we'll just talk about what we have now, and that's what's on the market. That's what we have to work with. The information I just gave you on the history of the high-level structure can be found on a Task Force 14 communique, the one that you have on your screen. And if you search for that name, ISO TMB JTCG TF14 communique issue 2019-01, you'll find it. It'll pop up. Now, okay, this slide was supposed to be animated. I apologize, you have all this information there. With this platform, I'm not able to use that animation. So I'll just walk you through. We're gonna discuss, is it a combined management system or is it an integrated management system? I'm pretty sure you have heard both terms. Now, which is the right term? Which is wrong? What does it mean? Let's look at where this information comes from, where this definition comes from. And the point is to define that we can use both terms. There's a slight difference. However, in the context of what we're going to be discussing, we can use either term. There are mainly three documents to consider when trying to understand the meaning of combined versus integrated management system. The first document on the left is ISO 19011-2018, Guidelines for Auditing Management Systems. This standard is mostly used for internal, first party, and supplier, second party audits. ISO 19011 provides the following definition for combined audit, and you see that on your screen on the left. It's an audit carried out together at a single auditee on two or more management systems, with note 1 to entry, when two or more discipline-specific management systems, for example, ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, are integrated into a single management system. This is known as an integrated management system. Additional to that, in the introduction of ISO 19011, there's a statement indicating this document adopts, and that's the second square on the left, on the bottom left. This document adopts the combined audit approach when two or more management systems of different disciplines are audited together. Where these systems are integrated into a single management system, the principles and processes of auditing are the same as for a combined audit, sometimes known as an integrated audit. Okay, so here you see ISO 19011 uses both terms. The second document to look at is, and that's the one in the middle, it's ISO 17021-1 2015, which provides the requirements for bodies providing audit and certification of management systems, that is to say, third-party audits. Clause 9.1.6 provides a rather generic statement about multiple management system standards. Now, for specific guidance on auditing integrated management systems, in particular for third-party audits, you need to look at the IAF, International Accreditation Forum, mandatory document, IAF MD 11 2019, which besides requirements on how to go about auditing integrated management systems also includes a definition. Now, for those who are not familiar with the IAF mandatory documents, that's a series of documents that need to be applied together with the ISO 17021 series of standards for third-party audits. There are several documents that point out auditing time and specific requirements for specific types of audits. So MD11 is the one that applies to integrated management system. Now let's look at the definition. You have it on the right side of your slide on top in that square. It says an integrated management system is a single management system managing multiple aspects of organizational performance to meet the requirements of more than one management standard or specification at a given level of integration. All right, let that sink in. Now, the second important definition is the one on the bottom right, where the level of integration is defined as the level to which an organization uses one single management system to manage multiple aspects of organizational performance to meet the requirements of more than one management system standard or specification. It also explains that the level of integration may range from a combined system adding separate management system processes for each set of audit criteria or standard to an integrated management system sharing a single system documentation, management system elements, and responsibilities. Given the above, we can determine that integration is the process of unifying requirements of multiple standards into an organization's overall management system. The use of the terms combined versus integrated depends on the level of integration of those different management system standards into one system. The result of integration is a single integrated management system that meets the requirements of multiple standards. So I hope it is clear now that we can use both terms. However, when we use integrated, we refer to integrating several management systems at different levels of integration into one management system. And when we use combined, it's pretty much the same. So I hope I won't confuse you throughout this presentation. I'm going to give you an example here. The next slide. Oops, went too far. Okay, here it is. For example, in this chart, we can see 3 levels of integration or combination as per the definition we just discussed. We're looking at 3 management system standards in the first column on your left: ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and ISO 45001. It's just examples of very popular management system standards. The second column presents a scenario where there is no integration. Each management system is being managed separately. That means the organization that is applying these 3 standards has 3 the three independent management systems within the organization. The next column presents a scenario where the three standards are partially combined or integrated, for example, through the context analysis, management review, policy, objectives, etc. And finally, in the right column, we are looking at a scenario in which all three standards have been integrated into one single integrated management system. The level of integration is a strategic decision of every organization and may vary depending on several factors, including the resources the organization has available, the actual integration or level of integration of the specific management system requirements into their business strategy and management, the requirements of the interested parties, an understanding of benefits of integrating their management system, and other factors. Let's go to the next slide. As stated before, all management system standards as of 2012 follow the same high-level structure, which means same sequence, identical core text, and common terms and core definitions. Every management system standard, however, has a specific purpose, different objectives, and affects multiple interested parties. For example, ISO 37001 anti-bribery management systems, which establishes the requirements for an anti-bribery management system, has a very much different purpose from ISO 45001 for health and safety management. Nevertheless, given the high-level structure, the common elements of each standard may be integrated and addressed via the same means, processes, procedures, and so on, while specific requirements may be addressed through specific processes, procedures, controls, etc. The level of integration depends on how well these are integrated. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is also a slide that was supposed to be animated, so I apologize for the confusion here. You're actually looking at 4 overlapping pictures. In this table, you see a comparison of the different number classes or chapters as given by the high-level structure of the ISO directives Part 1, and some of the most commonly applied management system standards that are ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, and 27001. What I'm trying to show here is the high-level structure and how it is reflected in each of these standards. The cells shaded in blue are the main chapters, which are the same throughout all the standards based on the high-level structure. The cells shaded in yellow are the subclasses that are the same for each standard, except when it addresses the specific management system. For example, in 4.3, determining the scope of the management system, in the high-level structure, it would read determining the scope of the XXX management system. In ISO 9001, it reads determining the scope of the quality management system, and so on. Quite simple, right? The white cells on this table are those with text specific to each management system discipline. For example, 9.1.2, and you can see that on your screen. In ISO 9001 provides the requirements in relation to customer satisfaction, whereas in 9.1.2 in ISO 45001, the requirements for evaluation of compliance are stated because of the different focus of each of these management systems. Now let's look at it in a bit more detail. I'm going to go through each section of the standard very briefly. It's a lot of information. We cannot discuss it all, and it's probably overwhelming. So I just want to focus on the main points. Section 4 deals with the context of the organization. Every organization has interested parties who have needs and expectations. For an organization to be effective and efficient in carrying out its activities, it needs to understand its environment and the market in which it operates. When considering its context, the organization needs to understand both the internal and external issues which influence the organization's purpose, its objectives, and of course, its sustainable success. Some of the most used techniques are the SWOT analysis, the PESTLE, force field analysis, and others. As an organization considers their context, they also determine their risks and opportunities, which then provide valuable input into the design, implementation, maintenance, and improvement of their management systems. You might find that when applying these techniques, the organization may have addressed all the management system standards they're applying within their organization, either all together or in separate ways. Section 4.4 refers to the management system and its processes. The specific structure of the management system is dependent on the context of the organization. There are different ways for an organization to describe their processes and their interactions, such as process flowcharts, process maps, SIPOC, etc. When auditing the different processes of the combined management system, the auditor needs to make sure that all the requirements for each discipline, for example, ISO 45001 and ISO 14001, are addressed. So it doesn't matter how much integrated a management system is, all the requirements of each management system standard need to be addressed and need to be audited. Let's go to the next slide. Section 5 talks about leadership. Top management plays a crucial role in each organization, and it depends on their leadership and commitment, no doubt, how effective the organization is in reaching its objectives and meeting the interested parties' requirements. The requirements in Section 5 of the high-level structure are mostly the same for each management system standard, except for a few specific requirements. For example, in ISO 45001, the addition of a clause requiring consultation and participation of workers. Each management system standard requires a policy. When applying different management system standards, the policies can be integrated into one single policy or stated separately for each management system standard. When auditing organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities, which is 5.3, the auditor needs to verify that these have been defined in relation to each discipline and that sufficient evidence is available. Let's go to the next slide. Section 6, planning. And again, you can see the blue shaded cell, that's the heading of the chapter of the section within the standard, and the yellow shaded cells are those common requirements that apply to each management system standard based on a high-level structure, and the white cells are those that are specific to each management system discipline. Section 6, planning, establishes the requirements for planning, including the actions to address risks and opportunities, management system standard disciplines that also involve meeting a set of legal requirements or compliance obligations, such as ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, usually include more requirements that are specifically related to compliance. When auditing combined management systems, you will have to look closely if all the risks specific to each discipline have been determined and addressed in such a way that will allow the organization to reach its intended result, including compliance as applicable. Objectives should be an output from the organization's planning processes and support its policy or policies, and they should be cascaded throughout the organization. The objectives must be measurable, must be monitored, communicated, and updated. Now, once again, in a combined management system, the auditor needs to verify if this is being done for each of the management system disciplines. The organization might decide to combine the objectives into one, but then you still need to see how it applies to each of those management standards and how these are being cascaded throughout the organization. Going to 7, support. Appropriate resources, of course, are essential to reaching the organization's objective. Resources include people, materials, information, infrastructure, finances, organizational knowledge, and others. Section 7 requirements do not vary much among the different management system standards, hence they can easily be addressed in a combined fashion. For example, job descriptions that address all disciplines, or in infrastructure necessary to produce products or services that meet the specified requirements while providing sufficient safety mechanisms to ensure worker safety and environmental controls to reduce environmental impacts. So once again, when you audit a combined management system, you need to make sure that the specific requirements of each standard are addressed within the combined management system. In Section 8, operation, this section addresses the operational planning and control. This is the section where each management system standard provides most discipline-specific requirements. The auditor needs to verify if the actions determined as a result of planning, as in Clause 6, and those actions to address the identified risks are implemented. If the criteria for the processes have been established, if the controls have been implemented in accordance with the operating criteria in order to meet product specifications, eliminate hazards, etc. So this is really where the auditor needs to be very familiar with the organization's processes and with the management system requirements specific for each discipline. I really just want to go over this very quickly because one can talk for hours about each of these sections, but this is not a training course. Section 9 talks about performance evaluation. The requirements for performance evaluation, again, are quite similar for each management system standards. Internal audits may be done for each management system standard separately or combined. Combined internal audits may not only be more efficient in terms of use of resources, but they also may be more effective in determining the effectiveness of the management system's processes and the overall effectiveness of the integrated or combined management system, as to provide a better view of how the processes overall are managed and organizational objectives are achieved. In an integrated management system, you may typically find scorecards, or talking about performance evaluation and analysis. So you may typically find scorecards or other means of reporting data that address each management system discipline. The auditor needs to verify that performance is monitored and measured at all levels of the organization to determine their performance relative to the established objectives of the organization. So in some organizations, you may find that they perform internal audits for each management system standard, even though their management system may be integrated, or they perform integrated audits according to the audit program, where they address all standards at once, which doesn't mean that it has to be one single audit. It can be an audit that is done over several time periods, just addressing several aspects of the organization. according to the audit program and make sense for the organization. Going to section 10, improvement. That's the shortest section of every management system, ISO management system standard. It provides mostly the same requirements for each management system standard. In our table here, you will find that 10.2 in ISO 45001 also includes a requirement to address incidents given the intent and the purpose of the management system standard. But in an integrated management system, of course, the organization is expected to demonstrate during the audit how they apply improvement to each of their management system disciplines. And they can do that either separately or in an integrated manner through activities that apply to each of the disciplines or that apply to each discipline in a separate manner. So again, an improvement action can have an effect on quality management, environmental management, and health and safety. So it would address all three standards at once, but there can also be actions that apply to only one standard. Overall, the organization should be able to demonstrate that they do apply improvement to each of their management system disciplines. Now let's talk about specific approaches to auditing integrated management systems. Going to the next slide here. Earlier, remember I showed you a slide that had 3 documents. The one on the right we mentioned is the IAF MD11, which provides the requirements for third-party audits or certification audits of integrated management systems. And by the way, those IAF mandatory documents are publicly available through the IAF site. So you can just Google IAF MD11 and it should pop up in your browser. You can download it for free. The IAF MD11 also serves and may be used as guidance for internal audits, as ISO 19011 does not particularly focus on integrated management systems. So you may find IAF MD11 very helpful when you plan auditing a combined or integrated management system. IAF MD11 provides 2 different audit approaches. The first is the standard audit approach of integrated management systems, and the second is the extended approach. For the standard audit approach, the audit will be conducted by 1 or more auditors who are qualified for 1 or more management system standards relevant to the scope of the audit. Nothing new there, right? For the extended approach, while that applies only to fully integrated management systems, the difference between the standard approach and the extended approach is that the extended audit approach employs a mandatory planning session. Now, again, this is for third-party audits prior to the audit by the lead auditor. And the lead auditor only will audit the clauses 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 of the integrated management system because of its common elements. Remember, IAF-MD is intended for third-party audits, but you may as well apply the same criteria for your internal audits, meaning first-party audits, and second-party audits, meaning supplier audits. Now, how does the person planning the audit know if the management system is fully integrated so that the extended audit approach can be applied? Well, in the case of a certification audit, the lead auditor has to have a mandatory planning session with the auditee prior to the audit. In an internal audit, this may not be necessary. Another difference between these 2 approaches is the audit time, which is calculated differently, as we will see in the next slide. For the standard audit approach, you take the recommended audit time for each management system standard and add that up as is expressed in the formula. Now, how do you get that recommended audit time? Well, look up the IF mandatory documents and you'll find the recommendations and specific tables there for different management system standards. So it will give you the time needed according to the number of persons involved in the management system, the type of standard, the type of complexity, and different other factors. So you get that information there. So the formula, T equals A plus B plus B plus C. Yeah, we got basic math here, where T is the overall time, A would be the time necessary for auditing, for example, QMS, B would be the time for auditing EMS, C would be the time for auditing OHSMS. So for the standard audit approach, you would just add up all those three numbers. Let's say 5 days plus 4 days plus 4 days. So that's 5 and 4, 9 and 4. That gives you 13 days for the standard approach for auditing those three management system standards within that organization. Again, I just made up these numbers. They will be different for every organization and every management system. Now, IAF MD11 also provides what factors can be used to reduce that time and to increase the time. And factors to reduce the time is the extent to which the organization's management system is integrated, the ability of the organization's personnel to respond to questions concerning more than one management system standards. So it's different if you have to, when you address one specific requirement in a standard, if you have to go to 3 different people because there's 3 different managers for each management system, or if one person is in charge of a combined management system and that one person can respond to your questions. So it does make a difference, especially when planning for time. For example, you may have a quality management system responsible, and you have another person who is responsible for the environmental and the OHS management system. That it happens very typically in organization. So you have 2 people to talk to. In other organizations, you may just have one. In particular, if you address, let's say, improvement, maybe one person can answer all your questions. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. So the timing really depends on that. Another factor that may reduce the audit time is the availability of the auditors that are competent to audit more than one management system standard. Remember, even also in ISO 19011, it stated that the audit team overall needs to be competent to audit a combined management system, where each auditor needs to be competent in at least one of the standards. Now, if you have auditors that are competent in more standards, you may need less time for your audit of a combined management system. A factor that may increase the time is the complexity of the audit of the integrated management system compared with a single management system audit. The reduction should not exceed 20% from the starting point. So if that formula gives you a total of 10 days, then if you apply the factors that reduce that audit time, you should still not have less than 8 days for your combined management system or integrated management system audit. Now, again, these are guidelines for third-party audits. Within your own organization for internal audits, you may use those guidelines, but they're not mandatory. You can come up with your own formula. Now, in the next slide, let's look at how we calculate timing for the extended audit approach. First, you calculate the audit time for each management system standard, as we did with the standard approach. And then, here's a formula again. Take the longest audit time for a single standard from the integrated management system, and then add 50% of the audit time of each additional standard. So remember in the example before, I said we have 5 days, 4 days, and 4 days. So you would take 5 days as your basis and then add the half of the other 4 and the half of the other 4. So you would have 5 plus 2 plus 2. So that's 9 days overall for an integrated management system. And that is the minimum time. The final confirmation of the audit duration is done at the planning session. However, it will not be less than the time obtained in the formula. It can become more, but not less. I hope it doesn't sound too complicated. It is not. And again, you can always go to IAF MD 11 and you will find actually more detailed information on what I just explained here. There are other considerations for auditing combined or integrated management systems, and I'm just going to read them off this slide you have in front of you. All applicable requirements of each management system standard or specification relevant to the scope of the integrated management system shall be audited. So if the organization combined the requirements into one process or procedure or whatever on management review, you still need to make sure that they meet the requirements of each of the management system standards that you're auditing to. Okay, they cannot say, oh, we addressed that through our QMS. Okay, well, maybe they can, but they still need to show conformity to that same requirement in the EMS and in the OHSMS or the Information Security Management System, whatever is within the scope of the integrated management system. Now, audit reports shall be integrated for both approaches, the standard approach and the extended approach, unless required otherwise with respect to the management system audited. Each finding raised in an integrated report shall be traceable to the applicable management system standard specification. Consider the impact of a nonconformity for one management system standard on the compliance with the other management system standards. If the nonconformity is in relation to one of the common requirements of the integrated management system, the nonconformity is applicable to the entire management system. For example, in 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties, if you find that they have not applied a proper methodology to determine the needs and expectations of interested parties, then that will most likely affect all the requirements of all the management system standards that have been integrated into the management system. And if this is the case, then this should be reflected accordingly in the audit report and in the nonconformity statement. If the nonconformity is to one standard specific requirement, then it impacts the integrated management system in regard to that standard only. Remember when we looked at that table with the blue shades and the yellow shades and the white shades, the white shaded cells indicated standard specific requirements. So when you come across a nonconformity for one of those, this will really just, and it really impacts just that one specific standard, for example, for health and safety, then the nonconformity shall be issued against that specific standard, as it will most likely not apply to the other standards that are within the scope of that integrated management system. Now, let's conclude here. Thanks to the high-level structure, there are many common requirements that apply to different management system standards and that can be easily combined within a combined management system until reaching full integration. The time assigned for combined audit depends on the level of integration. When auditing an integrated management system, focus can be placed on the effectiveness of the processes and the management system overall, which may give management a better view of how they are actually doing. The audit team as a whole must be competent to audit the integrated management system. Each auditor must be competent in at least one management system standard. Auditing combined of fully integrated management systems may provide a more efficient use of resources because common elements of the different management systems can be audited at once. And the time for audits of integrated management systems reduces, hence there will be less interruptions for the auditee, which is typically very much appreciated by the auditee. So these are just some of the key items we discussed today. Now, remember, the first management system standard, which was quality management system requirements, was published 3 decades ago in the 1980s. I believe some of you in the audience were not even born back then. Yeah, that's how long ago this was. Many things have changed since then. Management system standards have evolved into addressing much better the organization's needs and providing good practices that lead to better results in reaching the organization's objectives, especially with that implementation of the high-level structures, which provides Section 4, knowing the organizational context. This is very important. That's the starting point for every management system. So all new management system standards as of 2012 integrate all that. So a lot has changed from the first published quality management system standard in, I believe it was 1987. Now, things are still evolving and they keep evolving. The next trend that is already taking place worldwide is the integration of several management system disciplines into combined or fully integrated management systems with a higher demand for auditors who are competent to audit to more than one management system standards and who have a better understanding of the organizational context and business management practices. It is also our task as auditors to demonstrate to management the importance of audits as one of the main drivers for improvement, as opposed to a bureaucratic practice to fulfill a requirement. I always like to point out the importance of us auditors. People may not like us, but they should, because we are actually the eyes and the ears of management and of other interested parties within the organization to see what's going on in the organization. People typically do their daily work. We all do that. We do our daily work. We're focused on what we do, and that's what we do. So you barely go into a different department and see what they're doing and how they're doing. And you're most definitely not going to tell them, hey, you're doing this wrong. You have to do it this way, that way, unless it really affects you and you are the internal customer of a client of that other process. But you typically don't do that. It wouldn't make you very popular amongst your colleagues within an organization. So it is really the job of the auditor of a management system to find where those gaps in the organization, where those areas where things are not being done correctly or maybe done much better. So it's really the auditor who gains that complete overview, or who should gain that overview of how the processes are being performed, how those processes are interrelated, how they're linked together, where are those gaps, where are those areas of risk, where are those areas or those places where things can go wrong. It's really the auditor who gets that oversight. No manager will get that insight unless they actually do an audit. So please, you auditors out there, be aware that you are very, very important to any organization. It's a big responsibility. Take it as such. Be prepared before you go into an audit. Be sure you know what you're doing. Be sure you know you understand the organization. Be sure you study what they're doing. Be sure to look at how their management system is set up, be it a single management system or a combined management system. Make sure you know what you're doing. so that you can actually do a good audit that provides value to the organization you're auditing and to your audit client, who that might be a different organization or the same auditee. Help us enhance that profession. It's becoming more and more important, as you will see as time goes on. Now, having said that, I would like to make a little announcement on the next slide. Oops. Okay, here it is. Together with my colleague Jorge Bravo, we are currently working on a book on good practices for auditing management systems, the holistic audit. ISO 19011 is a great guidance document, and if you have ever taken an auditing class, I'm sure you have learned a lot. However, in practice, everything looks different. With decades of experience auditing different types of management systems and our passion for the trade, we have decided to write this book, which is intended to provide very practical guidance to auditors on issues they might find difficult. Please look for the book as of October 2019. Now, this concludes my presentation. I appreciate your time, and I hope I was able to transmit some of my passion for auditing management system. Thank you very much and have a good day. Goodbye.